Let me guess, bago ka lang sa photography, no? Pero smartphone lang ang gamit mo at gusto mong matuto. Well, you are in the right video. Oo, willing akong i-share sa inyo ang mga na-experience ko sa mobile photography. Pero bago ang lahat, let's roll the intro para mukhang pro. Hey, what's up guys? It's me, Baltazar. Sa mga hindi nakakilala sa akin, ako po ay nag-upload ng vlogs, covers sa aking YouTube channel. At member din po ako ng bandang Blended. Like us on Facebook. Maliban dun, isa din akong freelance photographer, freelance videographer, freelance graphic designer, freelance photo and video editor, at sumasideline din ako sa pagiging computer technician or programmer. Also, isa din akong Public Relation Officer sa National Eagle Scout Association of the Philippines, Raha Sulaiman Chapter, National Capital Region, and a Creative Director sa isang group sa Scouting which is called the Sulaiman Creatives. Hindi pa man ako ganun kagaling o ka-professional sa ginagalawan kong industriya, pero sa panahong nagdaan, natutunan ko na din naman kung ano yung iba't ibang pwedeng gawin sa media arts, including the photography, mula sa pre-production, sa pag-shoot hanggang sa post-production. Marami akong natutunan at I am willing to share to you guys. And now, kilala niyo na ako, pag-usapan naman natin kung bakit talaga kayo nandito. What are the basics of mobile photography? Mobile photography. Una sa lahat, iisa-isahin muna natin kung anong meaning ng mobile and the photography. Mobile is capable of moving or being moved readily. Digital technology pertaining to or noting to a cell phone or smartphone, usually one with computing ability or a portable wireless computing device used while held in the hand. So, ang mobile daw, ito yung bagay na easy o madali tayong makakagalaw. Kaya meron tayong patrol mobile, mobile store, at ang common na mobile phone. From the word itself, mobility. Dito naman tayo sa photography. Photography is the art, application, and the practice of creating durable images by recording light, either electronically by means of image sensor. Ngayon, electronic na. Before kasi merong film cameras na ginagamit sa film photography. Pero ngayon, electronic, at yun ang pag-uusapan natin ngayon. From the word itself, photo, nangangahulugan ito ng light. Ito ay gumagamit ng ilaw upang makapag-capture ng isang object na nasasagap ng isang salamin o sensor sa loob ng iyong camera. So, ano na nga ba ang mobile photography? Mobile photography is the art of photography using a smartphone mobile device. So, yun lang. Ang mobile photography ay photography na gumagamit ng smartphone mobile device. So ngayon, alam nyo na kung ano ang mobile photography. Let's go with the equipments. In mobile photography, first thing you need to have is a mobile device. Like this. This is a Apple iPhone. Yes, gumamit ako ng Apple iPhone from 3GS, iPhone 4, iPhone 4S, iPhone 5C, iPhone 5S hanggang Apple 6. Dito ako natuto mag-mobile photography. At ito ang device kung bakit ako nahilig sa mobile photography. And now, ang gamit ko ngayon is Huawei Y6 Pro 2019. Bakit? Ito ang Huawei Y6 Pro 2019. Kasi, mas maraming professional learning features. Mayroon siyang manual settings na makikita natin sa mga DSLR and mirrorless camera. Parang Canon and Sony cameras. Mas madaming features ang Sony, pero when it comes sa color science, mas maganda pa din ang Canon. Mas affordable. And now that you have your smartphone, next thing you need to have is a micro SD card. Yes, micro SD card. Dito lahat iso-store ng smartphone mo ang iyong mga kinuhang litrato. Pero may mga smartphones naman na may built-in na sa loob na memory. Now that you have your smartphone and your SD card, ang kailangan mo naman ay ang makina na gagamitin mo sa pang-edit ng mga photos na kinukuha mo. I am using my personal computer with Windows 10 Pro operating system as editing machine for my artworks. Well, hindi naman kailangan na parehas tayo. Hindi kailangan na mamahalin ng makina na gagamitin mo sa pang-edit ng pictures mo. Ang kailangan lang is ay yung magper-perform para mag-execute ang creativity mo. Pwede din naman gumamit ng smartphones to edit your photos. The fourth thing you need to have is a photo editing software. Now, I am using Adobe Photoshop CC 2019 and Adobe Photoshop Lightroom CC 2019. Pero bago yan, gumamit muna ako ng mga presets sa Microsoft Office softwares, CorelDRAW and Picasa. Tulad nga ng sabi ko, hindi kinakailangan na mamahalin ang software na gagamitin mo to perform your creativity. May mga free applications naman dyan, lalo na sa software para makapag-perform ng edits mo. Edits mo. And the fifth thing you need to have ay syempre yung creativity mo. Hindi ka makakagawa ng kahit anong magagandang shots kung wala kang creativity. Yun ang pinaka mahalaga. It doesn't matter kung ano ang gamit mo na equipment, basta ma-execute mo ng maayos ang iyong creativity, goods na yun. Okay? Okay. And syempre, optional, kung wala ka namang natural light, kailangan mo ng lighting. Ito, yung ilaw na ginagamit para makapagkuha ka ng magagandang shots. And now that you have all the equipments para mag-jump in sa mobile photography, huwag muna basta-basta. Huwag ka munang lumabas ng bahay at mag-shoot ng kung ano-ano dahil kailangan mo muna maintindihan kung paano gamitin ang camera ng smartphone mo. Kaya ito naman ang susunod natin pag-uusapan. Let's learn the numbers. Guys, makinig kayong mabuti. Kasi kailangan ninyo ito maintindihan pag nag-start kayo ng mobile photography. Hindi lang ito sa photography, pati na din sa videography and cinematography. Hindi naman pwedeng puro auto lang ang settings ng smartphones na gamit mo. Uy, ayos, hindi siya blurred. Uy, naka-autofocus. Angas ng kuha mo, pare. Hindi po ganon. Kailangan ninyo maintindihan ang numbers dahil hindi naman maganda na kinokontrol kayo ng camera nyo. Dapat ikaw ang nagko-control sa camera mo. Hindi naman maganda kung puro auto lang. Naka-auto yung shutter speed mo, naka-auto yung aperture mo, naka-auto yung ISO mo, pati ikaw auto na. Inuuto ka na ng sarili mong camera. Di ba kailangan ikaw ang nagko-control sa iyong camera, hindi yung camera mo ang nagko-control sa iyo. Ang first na itatackle natin ay ang element of exposure. Una, pagbukas mo ng camera ng smartphone mo at isinet up mo na ito sa manual settings, dapat nakabalanse ang elements ng ating exposure. Teka, ano nga ba ito? Elements of exposure. As you can see in the graphics to the right, there are three elements of exposure: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. These three elements are easiest to think of an exposure triangle, with each element interacting with the other to result in a good exposure. Ito yung mga elemento na kailangan natin upang ma-maintain ang brightness and contrast o yung exposure ng ating subject na kinukunan. Mahalaga ang bawat elemento na ito sa pagkuha ng litrato. Alam nyo kung bakit? Mamaya malalaman nyo. So, nakikita nyo to. Ito ang exposure triangle. The exposure triangle is a common way of associating the three variables that determine the exposure of a photograph: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Ito ang pinakamainam na guide upang makuha natin ang good exposure ng ating mga litratong kinukunan. Nakikita nyo naman na nasa gitna ang perfect exposure. So kailangan nila ang isa't isa para sa good exposure ng isang litrato. Ngayon, tapos na tayo sa exposure triangle. Isa-isahin naman natin ang tatlong pinakamahalagang settings ng camera mo. Unang-una, ito ang pinakaunang sinesetup sa tatlo. Shutter speed. Shutter speed is the length of time camera shutter is open, exposing light onto the camera sensor. Ang shutter speed, yan yung tagal ng pagbukas ng shutter sa camera mo, or yung bilis ng pasok ng ilaw sa camera mo. So yan, makikita nyo itong shutter speed. Ito, may baliktad. Ito. Makikita nyo na 1/50th of a second. So, tignan natin. Subukan natin siyang ibaba. So, ayan ang itsura ng shutter speed nyo pag binabaan. Pwede nyo siyang gamitin sa mga blurring objects or moving water. Take note, mas mababang shutter speed, mas mataas ang exposure. Ngayon, taasan naman natin ang shutter speed ng ating camera. So ito, mas mataas na shutter speed, mas mababa ang exposure. Nakita nyo naman kung ganong dumilim ang subject. So ngayon, ibalik natin sa normal shutter, which is 1 of the 50th second. So, ganito. Sa mataas na shutter speed, madilim. Sa mababang shutter speed naman, maliwanag. Katulad ng mga shots na to. So, nakita nyo naman kung paano kong kinokontrol ang shutter speed ng camera. Ito, nakikita nyo dito. Ito naman ang different shutter speed settings ng ating camera. So, tapos na tayo sa shutter speed. Ngayon naman, pag-usapan natin yung pangalawa sa tatlo, which is yung aperture. Aperture is also called f-stop. Aperture can be defined as the opening in a lens through which light passes to enter the camera. It is expressed in f numbers like f1.4, f2, f2.8, and so on to express the size of the lens opening, which can be controlled through the lens or the camera. Sa aperture naman, yan yung dami ng ilaw na pumapasok sa sensor ng camera mo. Mas mababang aperture, mas buka ang iris ng lente ng camera nyo. So ang tendency, mas konti ang papasok na ilaw sa sensor ng camera nyo. So the aperture also affects the depth of field ng litrato ninyo. Depth of field. Field is the distance between the nearest and the farthest object that are in acceptably sharp focus in an image. Depth of field ay ang lalim o babaw ng focus ng lente ng camera nyo. So, mas mababang aperture, mas blurry ang background. So, ang tendency na highlight yung subject, which is si Bruce Lee. Ngayon, subukan naman natin taasan ang aperture natin. Kung mapapansin nyo, bumababa ang exposure kasi nga the higher aperture, mas konti ang pumapasok na ilaw sa lente ninyo. Kasi lumiliit ang opening ng iris ng lente ninyo. Pero na-focus na yung dalawa sa likod. So, uulitin ko. Mas mababa ang aperture, mas blurry ang background. Or so-called shallow depth of field. Yung tinatawag na bokeh effect. Mas mataas na aperture, mas focused ngayon ang background. That is called deep depth of field. Kung mapapansin ninyo, kada bago natin ng aperture, naapektuhan din ang exposure ng camera natin. So be wise about it. So kung ganyan kadilim, kailangan mong i-adjust yung susunod nating tutuklasin. Yung last na settings sa tatlong pinakamahalagang settings sa camera mo ay yung ISO. ISO. In photography, ISO relates to a sensor's or film sensitivity to light. A lower ISO settings makes the sensor less sensitive to light, meaning it either needs more illumination or longer shutter speed to properly expose an image. ISO essentially controls the sensitivity ng sensor mo sa light. So, mas madaling intindihin ang ISO. Mas mababang ISO, mas madilim. Mas mataas na ISO, mas maliwanag. Pero dahan-dahan sa paggamit ng ISO, lalo na pag nasa low light ka at inangat mo ng sobra ang iyong ISO, nako, magkakaroon ng grain and noise ang litrato mo. So, papangit ang output niya para kang gumamit ng first gen na mobile phone camera. So ayan, ganito nga i-setup ang ISO. Ngayon, paano nga ba natin nasabi na kailangan nila mag-work na tatlo? Yung shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Una kasing sineset dyan ay ang shutter speed mo. Hanapin mo ang sweet spot o yung pinakamaganda o kaaya-aya sa paningin ng iyong mga mata. Sunod naman ay ang aperture. Kung gusto mo, lahat sila ay nakafocus or may i-highlight ka lang na subject. Kung gusto mo, i-highlight lang na nasa harapan o si Bruce Lee, babaan mo ang aperture mo at para blurry yung background. Kung gusto mo naman ay lahat sila ay fokusado, dapat taas mo yung aperture mo. Ngayon, may mali pa rin dahil napakadilim. Na-set mo na ang shutter speed at ang aperture mo, ilock mo na yan dyan. At iset mo na yung ISO mo. O, di ba? Kailangan mo lang silang tatlo para makuha yung right exposure sa picture mo. So, ayan. Na-discuss ko na ang mga numbers o ang mga elements of exposure ng camera mo. So, ano na lang ang kulang para sumabak sa pagpo-photoshoot? Syempre, yan ang susunod. I will teach you the right position, some tips and tricks in taking good shot in mobile photography. Okay, so bibilisan lang natin to. Kasi yung previous topic natin ay masyadong matagal. At na-bored ata kayo. So, i-explain ko hanggat sa kaya kong bilisan. O bibilisan ko hanggat sa kaya kong explain. So, unang-una, the grid lines. Use grid lines to balance your shots. One of the easiest and best ways to improve your mobile photos is to turn on the camera grids. Baka nagtatanong kayo kung ano bang lines ang pinagsasabi ko at ano yung naririnig nyo sa iba na rule of thirds about sa grid lines na to. I'm talking about these lines. Nakikita nyo to sa LCD screen ng inyong mga smartphone and DSLR camera. But you are removing it kasi nadidistract kayo for making great shots. Ano ba tong linya na to? Tanggalin na lang natin to kasi nakakapanood naman ako sa TikTok, YouTube, Facebook ng magagandang shots na walang ganito. Well, that's wrong, dude. Mali yan. These lines will help you to compose your shots better. Believe me, they will help you a lot. Itong rule of thirds ay tutulong sa'yo upang maging well-balanced and interesting sa mga shots mo. By placing or by putting the point of interest or subject in the intersecting lines. Dito. Here's an example. Notice that most of the time that the subjects are in the intersecting lines, the shots feel better in it. Mas masarap tignan, di ba? It feels like a stronger image. The image is more dynamic, meaning it creates more communication, more depth. And the rule of thirds, binibigyan mo ng balance ang iyong audience kung saan sila unang titingin. Kakasabi ko lang, pero tumagal ako sa rule of thirds. Pasensya na kasi importante ito sa photography. Pero let's move on. Set your camera's focus. Today's phone cameras automatically focus on the foreground of your frame, but not every picture you take on your phone has an obvious subject. Pero, sabi ko nga, if your smartphone has a manual settings, just set it into manual. Since natutunan mo na ang basic numbers ng photography. Again, don't let your camera control you. Dapat ikaw ang nagko-control yan. Next is focus on one subject. Many of the best photos include just one interesting subject. So when taking a picture of one, spend some extra time setting up the shot. Mag-focus ka sa isang subject na mag-express ng emotion ng iyong litrato upang madaling maintindihan ng audience ang mensahe ng litrato mo. Next is to embrace negative space. Negative space simply refers to the areas around and between the subjects of an image, and it can take a photo from good to great. Tulad na sinabi ko kanina sa focus on one subject, emotion and message of your image emphasize in the space in the area between your background and the subject. Next is to find different perspectives. Taking photos from a unique, unexpected angle can make them more memorable. It tends to create an illusion of depth or height with the subjects. From the word itself na different perspectives, hahanap tayo ng bago na unexpected na makikita ng audience mo. Kumbaga, isa itong pasabog style sa estilo mo sa photography. Nawala na ito sa traditional camera shots na nakasanayan. Then next is play with the reflections. There's something so idyllic about seeing the sky reflected in a body of water. There's a reason why we love seeing that our eyes are drawn to reflections. So look for opportunities to play with them in photos. So itong play with reflections na to is karamihan sa atin ay mahilig sa mga reflection when it comes sa photography. Dahil nga nakikita dito yung balanse at proportion ng ating subject. Sikat to sa TikTok, YouTube, madaming cool ideas on how to execute the reflection in mobile photography. Next is the use of leading lines. In some photos, there's a line that draws the viewer's eye towards a certain part of the frame. Those are called leading lines. These leading lines ay nakakapag-attract o nakakakuha ng atensyon sa ating mga audience. Katulad ng mga lines sa highway, sa railway ng train, and many more, na pwedeng maging center of attention ng inyong image na nagko-contain ng dominant line. And next is look for a symmetry. Symmetry can be defined as a vague of sense, harmonious and beautiful proportion and balance. Katulad sa reflection, ang symmetry ay may angking harmony and proportion sa inyong subject. Kaya napaka-cool sa mata, napakasarap sa mata. Keep an eye out for repetitive patterns. Repetitive patterns are very pleasing to the eye. They appear whenever strong graphic elements are repeated over and over again, like lines, geometric shapes, forms, and colors. The repetitiveness and the pattern sa inyong subject ay nagbibigay ng form of creative photographic art sa inyong image. Ang cool din sa mata ng gantong form ng mga shots. Next is play around with color blocking. Isn't it cool when an entire photo is black and white, except for a single object? It turned out that yes, indeed, there are apps for that using these filters. Let's try to highlight the main subject to emphasize the message of the audience using those colors. In this world, hindi lang black lives matters, but all the color matters. Next is avoid zooming in. When you take a photo from a distance, it's tempting to zoom in on something specific you're trying to capture. Gusto mo ba ng ganito? Yung sobrang zoom? Ang pangit tignan, di ba? At maliban doon, naapektuhan din yung quality ng image. Oo, nakikita na natin yung pixels ng image natin. So, iwasan po natin yung ganitong sitwasyon. Next is to capture small details. You may have heard the phrase, "It's the little things sometimes that also applies to photos." Oo, isa lang yan. Lahat ng detalye ng subject o ng image ay nagmamatter. Nakakaapekto ito sa magiging interpretation ng inyong audience. Malaki man yan o maliit, nagmamatter yan. Enjoy every little thing in your art. Next is to use natural light. It's hard to find a great smartphone photo that was taken with a flash. Most of the time, they make a photo look overexposed, negatively altering colors and making human subjects look washed out. Isa lang din yan. Natural light is the best light na pwede mong gamitin sa photography. Basically, the light na nanggagaling sa arawan. Ito, trivia lang. Sa Philippines, the best natural light ay lumalabas from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. O kung tawagin ito sa photography, is the golden hour of photography. Next, if you use flash, only do so during the day. Sometimes, using your camera's flash can improve a photo but rarely does it do at night. Ang flash ng mobile camera ay hindi ganon kalakas, hindi ganon kasapat upang i-fulfill niya ang capability ng natural light. Next is to consider buying a mobile tripod. Although mobile devices make it easy to snap any photo on the go, there's never been an easy way to ensure the shot stays level and balanced when you shoot, especially if you want to be in the picture and not just take typical selfie with your extended arm. So ito ang aking mini tripod na ginagamit sa pagbablog. Meron siyang kasama na mount ng cellphone na ilalagay mo lang siya dito, yan, at pwede mo nang ilagay ang iyong cellphone. Ang sinasabi lang naman dito is mag-invest kayo ng tripod upang makip yung stability ng inyong image. But for me, my opinion, as a beginner, i-master nyo muna ang handheld camera shot before you proceed sa mga advanced and any pro gears. Next is to set your camera exposure manually. Another mobile camera features you'll want to set manually is your exposure. Diba, kanina ko pa sinasabi habang tinuturo ko yung learn the numbers. Kaya inuna natin ang element of exposure para maintindihan din natin ang controls and numbers ng inyong camera. Again, don't let your camera controls you. Dapat ikaw ang nagko-control sa camera mo. Next is to create abstract. Abstract photos are meant to capture the essence of an object or a series of them without revealing the entire landscape as a whole. Itong abstract na ito ay isang pamamaraan sa art o sa photography na pwede kang mang-iwan ng mensahe na magbabase lamang sa pananaw ng isang audience. Next is to take candid shots. Post photo can be great for the sake of memories, happy moments with friends, family, or occasional run-in with a celebrity. But sometimes, candid shots of people doing things or people with people can be far more interesting. Itong candid shots ay marami nang gumagawa nito. Dahil ang candid shots ay madalas na nagbibigay matitinding emosyon o mensahe sa audience na ipinaparating ng isang photographer. Next is being non-conventional. Composition is a huge part of what makes photo great. But so is the photo subject. Some of the most delightful and remarkable photos come out of cool, unique ideas. So ito, be a unique person. Huwag kang magsistick sa tradition na nakasanayan ng lahat ng photographers. Sa lahat ng traditions, shots, and stops, try to think, innovate ideas na fresh pagdating sa larangan ng photography. Try to make style na pag nakita ng audience ay malalaman agad nila na ikaw yung kumuha ng shot na yon. Next is to make them laugh. Speaking of evoking emotion, sometimes the most memorable photos are the ones that makes us giggle. Alam naman natin na ang photography ay very complex, sobrang lawak nito sa pag-express ng emosyon. But what if gawin nating more on good vibes? Lagyan natin ng positive and funny vibes ang ating work. Na walang tao o walang hayop na nasasaktan. Let's spread positivity. Positive vibes ha, hindi yung usong positive ngayon. Next is to clean your phone lens. A smartphone camera might be more convenient to carry around than a full-fledged photojournalist camera, but it comes at a cost of protection. So, routine na po dapat natin na always clean your lens because nakaka-epekto ito sa dekalidad ng image mo nang hindi mo napapansin. Cleanliness ay laging ino-observe yan. Hindi lang sa photography, kundi sa lahat ng bagay. Then next is to attach an external lens. There are actually several out there that can be attached to the top of your smartphone's native camera lens. From fisheye to wide-angle lenses, these add-ons can bring an entirely new quality and perspective to your photos. Kung gusto mo naman ng mga fancy shots and stops, try to buy an external lens para sa smartphones nyo. Pero sa beginner, sabi ko nga, gamitin mo muna kung ano yung bagay na meron ka. Huwag bilhin ng bili. Minsan, wala sa gamit yan. Nasa gumagamit yan. At ikaw yun. And lastly, don't be afraid to edit. Composing and taking your smartphone photo is just the first step to making it visually compelling. Editing your photos is the next step, and a very critical one at that. Filters can be valuable photographic tool, particularly when it comes to two goals: removing blemishes from picture and making food look even more delicious. Minsan, natatakot kayo kasi ayaw niyong masabihan ng picture nyo ay inedit o edited. Walang problema doon. In photography, editing is also a part of the process. As long as nasa tama mo gagamitin ang editing skills mo at base ito sa iyong creativity, that's good. That's okay. O yan, binilisan ko na. So ngayon, alam nyo na ang iba't ibang tips and tricks about sa mobile photography. Again, this is Lance Baltazar at maraming salamat sa pagstay nyo at sa pakikinig nyo at sana may natutunan kayo sa aking video. Again, thank you very much and see you to the next video. Oh, akala mo meron pang susunod? Ina-edit ko na tong video. Next time na lang ulit pag may pinagawa na si Sir Romel. Nood ka na lang muna ng mga vlogs and covers ko.